Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. Since we last spoke, the Rays are 0-2. With that being said, it is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here at 10:05 on this Friday night. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. So tonight for the Rays, back at the Trop to start a 10-game, 3-series homestand. They open it with a 5-3 loss to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Rays, after winning 5 straight on the road, they drop 2 in a row, and they are now back to 500 at 10-10. The Blue Jays improved to 9-10. These teams will play 2 more games over the next couple of days, and I think just one thing to keep in mind, these two teams became as they always do, but they were very familiar with each other last season, playing 10 out of the 60 regular season games against each other. And in the 3 series that they played in the regular season, the Blue Jays took the opening game every time. The only one that they didn't was that wild card series, that 3-game, or the best of 3 rather, where the Rays won that series 2-0. That was the only time they took the first game from Toronto, and this is to be expected, and it seems like games between these two teams are always very strange. This one certainly had strange moments, and it's tough for the team right now. They're dealing with some injuries, of course, as you know. Diego Castillo was not available tonight. It seems like he's having some potentially adverse side effects to the vaccine. That was the reason listed for him not being available. We have precedent for guys like the home opener for the Rays against the Yankees. It was Gio Urshela that missed that game because of the vaccine side effects, and he was back the next day. And I think that this has happened around baseball where guys have missed maybe a game or two. So we don't know for sure, but maybe Castillo will be back tomorrow. We know with Cody Reed being on the injured list, and that could be potentially a long-term thing, as there's some worries that that's I guess a symptom of a thoracic outlet issue. So hopefully that's not the case, but that's the worry right now. Obviously, Pete Fairbanks is still on the injured list. He's doing seems like better. He's ahead of schedule. The timeline for him with the throwing shoulder rotator cuff issue is that he'll be back maybe after Choi somewhere in late May or early June. So they're still going to be without him for quite some time. The Rays did make a move with Castillo, I guess, going on the COVID IL. They call up right-handed pitcher Lewis Head, who I guess was set to make his MLB debut at age 31, and today was his birthday. He did not end up getting in the game. It was, of course, as you know, Tyler Glasnow getting the first 6 innings of work, and he takes his first loss of the season. And then Chris Mazza, I think, undoubtedly his best performance as a Ray so far this year. Gets the final 3 innings scoreless and faces the minimum doing so. Gave up a single, but then got a double play ball right after that. So Mazza, a guy that's been coming up and down like crazy. I mean, you talk about the yo-yo effect. That guy is sent down to Port Charlotte. It seems like every other day, and he I guess was brought up with all the injuries that the Rays have been dealing with right now. So that's where the roster sits right now, and certainly with Glasnow able to give you 6 after, I think it was 37 pitches in the first inning, and then he averaged obviously just about 10 pitches the rest of the way, or at least the next 3 innings after that. He was able to get you 6, and with Mazza being able to get you 3, this is essentially kind of a second off day for the bullpen, because of course the Rays as a team had the day off yesterday, and they didn't really have to use anyone. They didn't have to use Kittredge, although he did warm up. You didn't have to use Thompson, Jeffrey Springs, and obviously Diego Castillo, as I mentioned, was not available. So I think obviously you lose, and so you don't get the result that you want. But in a 162-game season, sometimes you do have to kind of look to the greater plan. And with a team that has already had so many injuries, for whatever reason, basically only to their bullpen. Their position players have been fine outside of Choi, and a couple stints from Phillips and Kiermaier. The starting pitching, not really any injuries outside of maybe Archer, if you want to consider him that. It seems like all the injuries right now are coming from the bullpen, which is really the one spot that's supposed to be the team's strength, and it's the position group that's been hit the most. So in a situation right now, and they're still in that midst of the 30 games, the 31-day stretch, they're going to have the 10-game homestand here, and then I think a 7-game West Coast road trip. So it's not like things are going to get incredibly easier. If anything, they're just getting a little bit harder, as after the Blue Jays, you're going to have to face a couple of tough AL West teams at home, and with the Rays, it always seems to be a little bit strange when they go out west into that 3-hour difference time zone. So April was supposed to be a month, as I said, going into the year that the Rays needed to take advantage of. It was an opportunity for them with the easy schedule, or at least it seemed at the time, to stack some wins and potentially take an early division lead in the AL East, and that just hasn't been the case. Of course, the sweep in Fenway, you lose a 4-game series to the Texas Rangers, but outside of that, they've been very good, very solid, but they still find themselves at 500 at 10-10. As the standings sit right now, they are a clean 2 games back of first place. That would be the Boston Red Sox at 12-8, who have lost their last 2, and I believe they may still have a game. They're winning in the 8th inning against the Seattle Mariners 6-2, so maybe that lead will get stretched out to 2.5 games for Boston. I suppose with where the Yankees are at, although they did win to improve to 7-11. I mean, they were obviously I would even consider as a Rays fan, the Yankees were the runaway favorite in the American League East. So the fact that they're in dead last place, and even 2 games back of the Rays, that's a good thing. And I think that's the main point, is that early slip up for New York is going to allow some breathing room for the Rays to kind of get their feet underneath them. I think. Well, we thought that they were getting there with, of course, the 3-game sweep in the Bronx, and it looked like maybe they were going to sweep in Kansas City as well. They did take 2 of 3 from the Royals, but that last game, the finale, the walk-off for Salvador Perez that we'll talk about here, because we did not have a chance to do so after the game. We were off that night. Just left a bad taste in the Rays' mouth, and for the fans and for everyone involved. Still one of the better road trips that a team could have anytime you go 5-1 on the road. That's always a good thing. They've only had, I think, 1 road trip sweep in team history. I think it was 2016 or something along those lines that they had, I think, had a 5-0 road trip. So they were not able to, I guess, set that team mark. But they were awfully close. The finale in Kansas City, that was Wednesday night. They did lose 9-8. It was Michael Wacha getting the start and Jacob Junis going for the Royals. Of course, if you'll remember to a couple days back, it was that big inning in the first, the 4-run inning, in fact, RBI double for Wendell, a 2-run shot for Brandon Lau, and that was his second home run in 2 days, and he did have the off day tonight, so back-to-back days off for him, so maybe he'll come back, although it is going to be a lot of left-handed starters here over the next handful of games. And it was Francisco Mejia who had another nice game as well, getting an RBI double to cap off that first inning. And it looked like it was going to be smooth sailing for the Rays. Michael Wacha got a 1-2-3 in the bottom frame of the first inning, and then things got a little bit hairy. In the second inning for the Royals, it was 2 runs, a 2-run shot to Hunter Dozier on just I think it was a cutter for Wacha. They just got way too much of the plate. Over 5 2/3 innings for Wacha, he gave up 3 runs on 5 hits, just 1 walk and 1 strikeout and 2 home runs allowed. It just seemed like he was getting way too much of the plate, and that's his weakness, or I guess when he's going well, not necessarily his weakness, but that's just his scouting report, is that you are going to get a lot of the plate when you face Michael Wacha, and the home runs have been an issue for him, and he gave up 2 in that start. So, I mean, overall, coming off that last start in the Bronx where he went, I think, 6 shutout, goes 5 2/3, so did get some length. I think right now you would probably consider him maybe the 3rd or 4th best in your rotation, with maybe how a guy like Rich Hill has been looking, and even Yarbrough has struggled at times this year. So Michael Wacha, I think, kind of a buy low candidate. Still not a great start. He ended up with a no decision, of course, as it was the battle of the bullpens there late. But I guess I would go with a workman-like performance. I mean, he got through. I think, you compare it to the start that they got from Glasnow tonight, 6 innings, and although it was 5 runs, I think the situation is always important, and that he was able to give length, especially after that first inning for Glasnow, that he was able to work through. So sometimes the point I'm trying to make is the box score, the hits and the runs, although that is the most important thing, there are obviously other things that you can look at for measures of success, and Wacha was Wacha. I think that's important to keep in mind too. It's not like there's anything really to be upset about, because that's what he does. He's going to pitch, get a lot of the plate, and he is going to give up home runs from time to time. I mean, we would be lucky if we get any starts where he doesn't give up a home run. I think we'll at least 1 long ball a start for Wacha, and so you just have to deal with it. And for the back end of the rotation, especially with the way the bullpen is right now, the Rays are going to have to score a lot of runs to win those games. They did score 8, and ultimately did not end up being enough with the tough way that the bullpen shaked out. And we'll go to that now. It was a little bit strange with the way that they had been maneuvering guys. The previous couple of days, they didn't use any of the A guys, really. I mean, it was Strickland and Mazza and Honeywell and Richards, all those guys getting innings in the first 2 games of the series where the Rays won. And so they had all the A guys right now. Springs, Thompson, Castillo, they had them all on a couple days rest, and they were really the only ones probably that were available. So in that situation, and it did end up being a close game by the time Wacha was done. So I guess, you had the lead and you pretty much had to go to the A bullpen. But really, for one of the first times this season collectively as a group, all 3 of the guys faltered. Jeffrey Springs was able to collect just 2 outs and gave up 3 runs in the process. You look at where he came in, he got the ground ball with a man at second to get out of the 6th after Wacha departed, and so often I think it was Jeffrey Springs or maybe Castillo that had that issue in New York where they finished the inning really well with man on base, and maybe 1 out to get, and then they come out to start the next inning and for whatever reason just cannot hold it together. We've seen that a couple times. Ryan Thompson, another guy, thinking back to the first homestand of the year. So I don't know if that's something that Cash is going to have to change his philosophy on. I know a big part of this bullpen is a collection of guys that can throw multiple innings, but if they're not doing so effectively at this juncture, he might have to rethink that approach. And either you ask Wacha, and I understand a man on second base with 2 outs, either you ask him to finish the 6th or you don't bring him out to start the 6th, and then you just go to the pen early, because I think almost every time they've done that, where they brought in a reliever to finish the inning, they really struggled the next time up in the next inning. So, and that certainly was the case tonight. He came out in the 7th, did Springs, and he couldn't get anybody out. A single, a walk, and an RBI triple for him, and then he got a ground out, and that was it for him. So he departed with man all over the base path, and then it was Ryan Thompson, and that's, you get into that part where you're chasing outs because of guys that can't finish innings, and the point that I just mentioned about the struggles with that really just had a compounding effect. They gave up 4 runs in the 7th and then those 2 in the 9th. So it really was that big 7th inning. If they had just had a guy, if Thompson hadn't pitched in the 6th, then he was just clean up in the 7th. Maybe he gets a 1-2-3 because it was the bottom part of the order. It was Benintendi, Michael A. Taylor, and Hanser Alberto who pinch hit. So not easy guys by any means, but it wasn't the top guys. It wasn't like he had to face Merrifield, Santana, and Perez like Ryan Thompson ended up having 2 in that 7th inning, and it was the 2-run shot for Carlos Santana, which you knew was going to come at some point in that series. He's probably, I would say, the best offensive weapon they have, at least right now. And so I think that actually gave the Royals the lead. I think they had maybe a 1-run lead at that point after the 7th inning, and it was Thompson getting the final 2 outs of the 7th. Thompson is actually able to get a clean 1-2-3 8th, so it was good that, I guess, at that time it didn't backfire. And at that time for the Rays, offensively, just trying to piece this thing together, they put up runs. They put up 1 run in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. So I do like to see that, where you can score runs not just in bunches as they did with the 4-run first inning, but that you can generate offense at multiple junctures in the game. So in the 7th inning, it was Phillip on first with a leadoff walk, and then Meadows double to deep right to score him. And of course, Phillips, can get to first to home on a double, and he was running from the get-go. So you get a run there. Then in that made it 6-3 Rays, so that helped, I guess, mitigate the damage with the bottom frame because it was 7-6 Royals after that 7th inning. Then in the 8th inning, it was Kevin Kiermaier with a 1-out single. He steals second base, and then there was an error on the throw from Perez to second base, and KK is able to scoot over to third. So you've got the tying run in the 8th inning 90 feet away with less than 2 outs, and Randy Arozarena up, and he doubles, which scores Kiermaier, and they're not able with 1 out to bring Arozarena in from second. That would have given the Rays a 1-run lead if they could have done that. And then with the game tied in the top of the 9th inning, Meadows singles, and he gets on, and then they pinch run from Margot. Obviously makes sense in that situation, and you get better defense anyway, for the bottom frame. So that was a move that would have been made probably either way, and so that works out. You got him at first base. And again, first to home on a double, it was Joey Wendell, who undoubtedly has been the best hitter on the Rays roster right now, and including coming up in some clutch situations. He doubles and brings Margot in, and with Wendell at second base and 1 out, they're not able to bring him in. It was Lau popping up and Diaz lining out to left field. So that was, obviously very similar situation. So they do get the 1 run in, but do still leave, as Dave Wills likes to say, some chicken on the bone. So, you did have the lead going into the bottom of the 9th, and you did have your quote-unquote closer or, your highest leverage reliever pitching, and Castillo for the second time this year with a blown save, and he actually gets his first loss of the year on Wednesday night. A really tough break for Diego Castillo in the bottom of the frame. So he's pitching with a 1-run lead, and he's got to face the 7, 8, 9 hitters. So face value, a very about as easy of a situation as you're going to get. Barring, it could have been a 2, 3, 4 run lead, and it was just 1 run. So not really any wiggle room for Castillo, but he was pitching on plenty of rest and really has looked good for most of the year, outside of just a pitch that got away from him to Christian Vasquez in Fenway Park a couple weeks ago. He's really been shut out in the back end of games, especially pitching with the lead. And he's kept the game tied a couple times this year already as well. So in the bottom of the 9th, coming up first was Michael A. Taylor. and they catch a really tough break. It was a slider that was like a baseball off the plate at least, and Taylor just reaches over. It was outside, and he just hits the other way with it, and it just got over. I think the glove of the first baseman Yandy Diaz trying to range over there to go get it, and it was just in the right spot. So just kind of a bloop, barely single, and gets the tying run aboard. And after, I mean, it was lights out after that. The Royals played spectacular, kind of sacrifice, small ball to be able to get him in. They pinch run Jared Dyson for Taylor. So, Michael A. Taylor, a center fielder, is speedy in his own right, but they get a guy that's even quicker in Dyson. So you knew that was going to be a factor. And again, the tying run there with nobody out in the ninth. Dyson immediately steals second base off of Castillo. That's certainly something that Castillo's not great with base runners. I guess what you would say is that, well, he doesn't typically have a lot of base runners, so I guess it's not too big a deal. But especially when you got a guy like Dyson, it was rather an easy steal of second base. And then it was Hanser Alberto who hit a pinch hit triple already in the seventh inning. He comes up for second at bat in the ninth, and I believe it was a bunt or at least a sacrifice right to Castillo. He scores. They do go to first for the out, so that moves the runner Dyson from second over to third. So you've got the tying run to the Royals 90 feet away with just one out. Up comes the 9-hitter Nicky Lopez, and I think he laid down a bunt as well. And it was right to Castillo again, and he goes to home with the throw, and it was just not in time, and it was well put on hit and run, and whatever you want to call it, for the Royals. So that does bring in the run, and Nicky Lopez on the play, the fielder's choice, is able to get onto first base. So they have the winning run on first with still only one out in the game, and that's where things, of course, got hairy. It wasn't a sacrifice, but did move the base runner again. A Whit Merrifield ground out moves Nicky Lopez over to second base, so then you get him in a scoring position. Carlos Santana comes up, and as anyone could have foreseen, he's intentionally walked, put up the four fingers, does Kevin Cash. It's a non-consequential really thing because first base was open, and it's a tie game in the ninth, the bottom of the ninth, it doesn't matter. The runner at first base. And also with one out would put the double play on as well. So obviously that move is good, but it does bring up Salvador Perez, who's a pretty darn good hitter in his own right, and it was on a 2-1 pitch, a slider that was just middle perfect at 87. Castillo had given him all sliders in that at bat, and including after a strike looking to make it 0-1, just two that were non-competitive, and so the 2-1, it gives him a slider again, this time in the zone, and Perez ends up hitting a walk-off single for him. So you catch a bad break there, and really to me, if you take care of business against the 7, 8, 9 hitters, you don't have to worry about facing the big boys in the ninth. The situation did work out, but I do understand that little bloop hit to start it for Michael A. Taylor. That's not a Castillo. It was a baseball off the plate. It was not in the zone, and Taylor just sticks the bat out there and is able to get on first. And then maybe you ding up Castillo a little bit for allowing Jared Dyson to run wild on the base path, but it was just a well executed situation for Kansas City, and they were able to come away with the win. And the Rays were not able to sweep the road trip, but did still win it. They took the road trip, if you will, 5 wins and only 1 loss, and that bumped them up. Or the loss did. They dropped them to 10-9, and obviously with the loss here tonight, they are back at 500 to 10-10. So with that being said, at 10:27, we're going to take a break. When we return, we will finally get into tonight's loss, tell you everything that you need to know, break down the game. If you would like to call in, certainly you can do so. Number to call during the break, 877-566-1020 is your number to call. We'll be back in just a minute.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 1019 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:29 on this Friday night, we return this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call 877-566-1020. If you'd like to share your thoughts on tonight's game and talk Rays, we would certainly like to have you on. But if not, getting into tonight's 5-3 loss for the Blue Jays, they had 5 runs on 6 hits and 3 errors defensively for them. So the Rays continue to benefit from just defensive ineptitude from their opponents. Unfortunately, we're not able to take advantage really of any of them. They had it, with the errors, they were able to get extra base runners, including into scoring position, but we're never really able to knock them in. So that was a disappointing thing. And for the Rays, 3 runs on 5 hits, no errors. For them, it was Steven Matz, the win, who's now 4-0. He gave up 3 runs over 5 innings of work and was really dominant early. And Tyler Glasnow getting his first loss of the season, 5 runs allowed on 6 innings of work. Really, I think the story of this game was just kind of the bad first inning. That's really all there is to it. 9 men come to the plate in the first inning for Toronto, and 4 of them end up coming across to score. So kind of like the Rays last night or 2 nights ago in Kansas City with the 4 spot in the first inning, especially as the road team in the top frame. When you put that on, it's really hard to come back from. Obviously, the Royals were able to us. The Rays got close within 2 runs, but we're not able to get the job done. I think that the silver lining, or maybe what was good about the game, was just how terrific the pitching was after that first inning. After that first, the Blue Jays only had 2 more hits the rest of the way. It was a solo home run for Randall Grichuk, and then a leadoff single in the 9th to Simeon, or for Simeon, and then he was doubled off right after that. So Glasnow, another just weird inning for him. His last couple starts have been a bit strange after getting off to rather a red-hot start. It's funny, his ERA, I think, was about 0.6, 0.7. After a start tonight, it is now up to 2.05. So still very, very good, but if we're talking about his Cy Young candidacy, I guess did not help in that regard. But you are going to have starts like this, and I think what's so interesting about Glasnow and how much he's developed as a player is he's really done a fantastic job this season in the limited examples of it, where he's had to overcome a great deal of adversity. And the cool California kid, he's got the skater kid look going, the long hair. It's just water off the back for Glasnow. He doesn't get too upset with things. Obviously, a big part of his game, if you listen to him on the Chris Rose rotation, or I know Mark Tompkin has, reported on that quite diligently. his style. He likes to pitch angry on the mound. He likes to get himself hyped up for his starts. And that's definitely when you're a player who feeds off of emotion, it's really easy for the game to get away from you, especially I think for starting pitchers more so maybe than any other position in sports, that how easily kind of emotions can sway you. So that Glasnow is able to harness them for good, and it doesn't ever really seem to harm him. I think is a fantastic thing. I don't want to just keep dunking on Snell all year, but explaining this about Glasnow, I can't help but think of Blake Snell as a perfect example of kind of the opposite effect that I'm speaking about. You would see Snell, he would maybe get off to a good start or so, racking up the strikeouts, and then maybe he walks someone. There's a couple borderline pitches that didn't go his way, and he gets really frustrated. And then after that, you see him walk a couple more guys. And then with men on base, he doesn't want to throw strikes anymore because he doesn't want guys making contact off of him. And then his entire start just unravels, really for no good reason. And then, obviously that hurts your chances of winning that game. Well, for Glasnow, we've seen him get into some jams here, really more so his last two starts. Obviously, he had that rough inning in New York where he was walking a bunch of people, and he walked 4 guys in that start. Only 2 walks issued tonight. And one of them was in the first inning, one of them in the second. So after that, he did get it cleaned up. So I think that's been the biggest issue for Glasnow, where he struggled this year, is sometimes he'll lose control of the fastball, and obviously, fastball is always your bread and butter pitch, for most guys. I think extremely so for Glasnow. I know he's developed the third pitch. He's got the curveball and slider going, but anyone who's watched Glasnow knows whenever he's backed into a corner in a big situation or a big pitch, it's pretty much always the fastball. Especially if he's walked guys and there's men on base, he's just going fastball heavy because most guys just can't touch it, and especially if you can get them to guess for something else. There was a moment, I think a strikeout looking, I want to say for Bo Bichette there in the first, where you could tell Bichette was looking for the slider or the curveball, and his fastball comes in so hot from Glasnow. If you're not geared up for the fastball, like before when you step into the batter's box, you're not going to hit it. So I think that's going to be Glasnow's game. His first couple starts of the year, we saw him go really slider heavy. I think he was just excited for the new pitch, and then we've seen things kind of level off back to the mean, if you will. Where he's primarily throwing fastballs and the curveball and the slider as complements off of that. I will say, at least early in the start, the slider was not very sharp. It didn't have that sharp bite, that sharp break to it. It was kind of spiking him in and bouncing him in and not getting a ton of swing and misses. He did get some. I think there was 3 separate times where Mejia had to throw to first to complete a strikeout, and there was one that was a wild pitch that Gurriel on a strikeout was able to get to first. And this was Mejia's, because this is relevant, this is Glasnow's 3rd start in a row caught by Francisco Mejia. It's something that the Rays mentioned that they want to get going, I guess, is now the 5 pitchers that are in the starting rotation for the Rays. Mejia has now caught all of them, and I think they say that Glasnow's found some success. I've preferred his starts where Zunino was catching him, and who's to say if that's actually a factor in it or not. Unless it's the way that Frankie's calling the game, obviously a pitcher losing his control is not really on the catcher. But back to the greater point, that he was able to work around it. It was tough, though. In the first inning, strikes out Biggio, just blowing fastballs right by him. Can't touch it. Bichette strikes out looking. So 2 strikeouts, 2 outs. Bases empty. Let's complete this first inning, and you're thinking maybe Glasnow's geared up for maybe another 7-8 inning start where he's just going to completely dominate the opponents. And then so often this season, and I think the last couple of years as well, this has just been a bugaboo for the Rays. The 2-out runs. You live and you die by it for sure, because I know the Rays have had some success with that as well, including tonight. But it was a single for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It was just a ground ball that found the hole between the second baseman Brasso and the shortstop Adames that gets by. And then you're thinking, all right, just man up first, 2 outs, let's get out of this. But then up comes Rowdy Tellez, who had found a great deal of success against Glasnow. Going into this game, at least in the regular season career-wise, there's not many guys in this order that had seen Glasnow before. I understand that Glasnow has struggled against the Blue Jays in his career. I think came into the start with over a 6 earned run average against Toronto. And so that those struggles kind of continue tonight. But it is a different team for the Blue Jays now than it was maybe in 18 and 19. But Rowdy Tellez has owned Glasnow since they've played each other, and it was an RBI double for him for the first run of the game. And obviously the Jays weren't done yet. It was Grichuk who gets walked, and that was a tough at-bat that kind of got away from Glasnow. I mean, it really did. It was a 4-pitch walk, 3 of them fastballs. It just couldn't find the zone. One of them, probably it was a strike, and Chris Guccione, I think not a fantastic balls and strikes called behind home plate, but certainly better than some of the other umps that the Rays have had to deal with. It seems like the last week or so, it's just been a rough stretch with the home plate umps, and this is the same crew that was umpiring the series in Kansas City for what it's worth. So it was a couple of men on with 2 outs, so you can still get out of it. And up comes Marcus Semien, and this was the dagger, and the Jays never looked back. It was a 3-run blast on 413 feet to center, and it was on a 2-1 count. A couple sliders that were non-competitive, and just a fastball that caught a lot of the plate. At 97, most guys are going to struggle with that, but on a 2-1 count, so hitters count, Semien obviously was geared up for it, and you're going to be able to hit those out. I think that's an interesting thing, an interesting topic, a discussion point to have about these power pitchers, and you see with the sports science and all this stuff. Yes, these pitchers are throwing extremely hard, but the basic physics of that is if you've got a fastball coming in at 97 and you put a powerful swing on that, it's going to go a long way. And early in Glasnow's Rays tenure, mainly that second half of 2018, and he was really dynamite to start 2019 before getting injured. But what was the home run ball, and that was what doomed him in Pittsburgh. And obviously because of that, it's just his fastball is great, but sometimes guys are just going to gear up for it. And just in that situation, that at bat with the men on base, and he threw a couple non-competitive sliders. If he could have gotten maybe one of those called for a strike, or if it was a better pitch and he got a swing and miss, get it to 2 strikes. Maybe Semien chokes up a little bit on the bat with a man at second and 2 outs, and it's a single instead of a home run. But instead, Semien can just be free swinging, and it was a fastball that was kind of middle and a little bit into the righty Semien, and he was able to pull that baseball effectively. I guess if anything in that situation, it would be better to go away with it and force him to hit the other way. But instead, it was hit to center, so I guess not really either a pull or an oppo. But that was just tough there, and the reason I spent so much time discussing it is really because that was the game. The Rays had a difficult time getting the offense jump-started against Steven Matz, who again has been terrific for Toronto. You talk about a buy low candidate, as we were discussing earlier, from Waka, and Matz and Waka were teammates on the Mets last year, and interesting how that goes for New York. But Matz, I think he had a no-hitter going in a doubleheader 7-inning game, and has just been, like I said, really just dominant. And the Rays, whose offense had looked like it was going to be turned around in the other direction, and some guys who had really been struggling had been starting to hit home runs in back-to-back days. For Lau, who gets the off day today, though, but Arozarena starting to heat up, and boy, did he have a spectacular game tonight. Talk about what you could lead the show off with. And a couple of other guys, Joey Wendell has been red hot, and like has happened, I guess, the first couple weeks of the season where the starter just dominates. You can't really get to him early. And, of course, there were more big spots, men on base, scoring position that were squandered by the Rays. They go 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position and leave a total of 7 men on base. And when you lose by 2 runs, I think it's more than safe to say that was the difference maker in this game. And I didn't realize it, but looking at the box score, the Rays only had, I guess you say only 4 guys to collect a hit. It was Brasso, Margot, Wendell, Mejia, all going 0 for 4. Adames goes 0 for 2 with a walk before getting pinch hit for in the ninth, and then Kiermaier was 1 for 4 at the bottom of the order. So that's something we talked about as well with this offense is, 2 or 3 guys is not going to be enough to get this done, especially on a night where your opponent scores 5 runs. I think watching this game, just kind of thinking to myself, especially with Glasnow on the mound, 3 runs in the game, more times than not for Tampa Bay is going to be enough to get it done. But with just the way that the game goes, and you knew from the get-go that 4-run first that you were going to be chasing that, and I guess the Rays did what's most predictable was they had plenty of opportunities, plenty of base runners, men in scoring position, and struck out in big moments and just did not come through despite the constant opportunities via the error that Toronto provided for this lineup. It was 12 strikeouts and just 3 walks. So you want to talk about batting eye and things, that's a very easy metric to just go to and look at. And yeah, they're striking out a lot more than they're walking. That category was looking pretty good on the road trip. And so I hope it was just an off night and maybe things will return back to, I guess, what has become the mean over the rest of the series, and they'll be facing some interesting pitching, to say the least. They'll have Hyunjin and Ryu, I think, in the finale on Sunday. But now the lineup that Kevin Cash ran out today. Defense first in the outfield from left to right. It was Randy Arozarena. Boy, what a game he had in left field. It was Kevin Kiermaier in center, Manuel Margot in right. And then in the infield from third to first, it was Wendell at third, Mike Brasso at second, Adames at shortstop. It was Yandy Diaz, the first baseman. Francisco Mejia did the catching, and Austin Meadows was the DH. In 20 games this season, the Rays have used 20 different lineups, all unique, which is to be expected. They are definitely not static in that regard. They do love to shake things up, and they continue to do so. I think part of that is, if Kevin Cash had a lineup that was working, maybe he'd stick with it, but they have not found anything that works consistently. I think he's still trying to find out where certain guys are best at. I think Yandy Diaz, each day more and more, I am a believer in Yandy Diaz as a leadoff hitter. I saw something, I don't know if it was on D-Rays Bay or it was one of those kind of analytics websites that post articles about it. Yandy Diaz swings at more strikes and takes more pitches outside the zone than any pitcher or any hitter in baseball, rather. And I think with the metrics they use, he's got a top 5. To me, that would be number 1, but he's got like a top 5 eye in Major League Baseball. He gets walked more than almost anyone, considering he's not, Mike Trout or Mookie Betts or name, who you think is the best hitter. And he's really just been a singles hitter the last couple seasons, so that he is working so many walks, and he works 2 in 5 plate appearances tonight. I think that makes him the perfect leadoff hitter, at least for the way the Rays work. The days of, I guess, having that speedy on-base guy that can swipe second to lead off a game, those days are just kind of done, and the Rays don't really have anyone like that anyway, to be totally honest. So I think with what Yandy Diaz is providing offensively, he'll continue to hit leadoff. And a very interesting situation, really, I think, that has become that first base spot. Mark Tompkins saw that G-Man Choi was taking some ground balls at first base. It seems like he's progressing at least okay, or at least as expected from that arthroscopic knee surgery that he had in spring training. I don't know if he's ever going to be the same. Obviously, I say all the time I'm not a doctor, but I can't imagine how those splits would be continuing after you have knee surgery like that. And at least initially, you would think that it would take a rather significant time to bounce back from that. But It looks like he'll be back somewhere from mid to late May is what we've been continued to be told. But with saying that, obviously you would like to have Choi back, and he's the fan favorite and all that, and maybe he is the missing part of this lineup. He's that X factor that they just need right now. But I think with the way Yandy Diaz has taken really to playing first base, he's played first and third in a Rays uniform. I think never looked natural at third base, although he did flash there in spring training this season. But with Joey Wendell, the way he's hitting and the spectacular defense legitimately took another hit away at third base. Wendell is your everyday third baseman. And so that would leave Yandy at first base because you can't DH him every night. I mean, Meadows is a guy that they want to DH a lot. Arozarena, they'll do that occasionally if they want to go defense heavy, more so in the outfield. But defense doesn't get much better than what Randy put out tonight. Boy, oh boy, that diving catch. I know that you saw it. And if you didn't, definitely go see it. It's everywhere on Ray's social media. But it's just where does Choi fit in? Because I think Yandy is terrific at first base, and he's played almost every day. It's not, at least we're not seeing yet that there's wear and tear from him over at that position. Has not played the field a ton, at least consistently day in and day out as a Ray. But like I said, I think he's really taken to it, and he's performing well on both sides of the ball. So I don't know what becomes of Choi. That's an interesting decision that they're going to make, and also who do you send down? Because it's not like you're going to go with 14 position players and 12 pitchers. If anything, they would like to have it the other way around, but now with the 5-man outfield, with both Kiermaier and Phillips on the roster, they're no longer able to do so. So I don't know, maybe with the logjam that would become at first base, maybe you decide to cut Setsugo loose, but he's due $7 million is Yoshi. He's the second highest paid player on the team this year. I don't think you can cut bait with him in April or May when Choi finally does come back. So that's a difficult conversation to have. And if Choi is not like really, I guess, taken to the rehab, trying to put a good way to say this. I mean, if he doesn't come back stellar, it's going to be difficult. I honestly think to keep him on the roster. I think he's making just under $2 million. I want to say it's 185 was the arbitration number that he was given. They could trade him. Certainly someone would want him. He's been terrific defensively and has been such a great hitter, I think, as well. Talk about another guy that works a lot of walks. So maybe this isn't a discussion maybe to go into depth, even though I've already done so right now because they do still have time. But it's something to look out for because you don't need like 5 guys in your roster that can play first base. And Choi, you want to talk about, hogging up the DH. Choi doesn't play anything other than first. He's played the corner outfields in his career, but I mean, we're talking, at this point 3 or 4 years ago that he's done that. He's been just a first baseman only in Tampa Bay. So I just don't think it's possible. You can't. I mean, unless you want to go with the platoon, with the lefty Choi and the righty Diaz. But I don't think that's doing justice to really either guy. I think they've both proven that they're worthy of everyday playing time, and this was the issue that we had with Renfroe last year, is just guys that need everyday playing time, and we just can't afford to give it to them because, again, there's only 9 spots in the lineup, 8 spots in the field, so it's difficult. And with Yoshi and Yandy and Meadows, they've already got enough guys to use the DH on. I don't think they need another first base / DH type, so that's just something interesting to keep an eye on. But I think you look on the other side of that coin, the bright spot of that conversation to be had is just because Yandy Diaz has been so spectacular. And if he was struggling, and obviously with the struggles Yoshi has had, then it would just be, I mean, we're counting the minutes until Choi can come off the injured list. But right now, it's not really the case. I'm worried that maybe he'll be more of an afterthought by the time he's healthy. And I certainly hope his rehab and everything is going well so he can return to the guy that he's been as a Ray since really 2018. As we said, it was only a couple of guys producing in the order. Randy was absolutely terrific with a couple of hits. Still with the strikeouts in his game, went down looking in the first inning, and he took like 94 right down the pipe for strike 3, and that's tough. You can't do that if you're Randy. but he did come around on a 2-0 pitch in the fifth inning and hit a 3-run homer. Very interesting. I saw someone on Twitter, I don't recall the user, but how often, because that part, I think it was left center, that's one of the deepest parts in any Major League Baseball stadium. And even to the deepest part of Tropicana Field, it was a no-doubter. I mean, it was absolutely obliterated, crushed, whatever you want to say. I mean, he got the pitch to hit the fastball for Matz on 2-0, and obviously he was geared up for it. Finally, he got his pitch to hit, and it ended up going, it was 445 feet to center, and in that inning, the Rays were able to get a couple men on, and including the 9-man, which I love to see. So that was awesome. That cut it to 4-3. So terrific for Rosarena. And then in the top of that inning, in the top of the fifth, it would have been the third out of the fifth. 2 outs, no men on, and a pop up for Rowdy Tellez seemed rather routine, but Kiermaier lost it in the roof. There was like 4 or 5 guys that came over to that spot in center field trying to get the baseball. And then out of frame, like Superman, you just see Randy Arozarena screaming in to center. I mean, he's absolutely flying. I'm sure you've seen the video of him this offseason racing a horse on foot, and I'm pretty sure he probably beat the horse. At least it looked that way. I mean, this is a really speedy player. I don't think gets enough credit. We talk about him all the time as a 5-tool player, and a lot of maybe Mookie Betts in his game, and made a diving play to get that baseball, and that, certainly after plays like that, things can really unravel if it doesn't go your way. And awesome play for Randy in the top of the fifth, and then in the bottom of the fifth with a 3-run homer. So that was really cool, and it seems that it always goes that way, where there are players that they put up a really good defensive play, and then they come up with a big hit in the bottom of that inning. So that was the case for Randy tonight. The way the lineup was ordered, Yandy led off, obviously, as we've said. Rosarena batting 2. Austin Meadows down to the 3 spot. Brasso hit cleanup, followed by Margot and Joy Wendell in the 6 hole. And then the 7, 8, 9 of Mejia, Adames, and Kiermaier. So I already told you the 20 lineups in 20 games. They continue to shake things up. I think with Yandy really taking over as the cleanup hitter, they were facing a lefty today, so the righty-lefty advantage. It seems like if it's a righty starter, they'll go Meadows at leadoff. But I'm at the point now, and I don't know Yandy splits righty-lefty, but I would just make him the everyday leadoff hitter as long as he's in the lineup. But you're gonna have to find somewhere to hit Meadows, because I don't think there's a natural place for him outside of leadoff. I think really that's just the kind of player he is. It just seems that he fits best in leadoff, but he just hasn't had a ton of success, especially when you compare his performance there to Yandy Diaz. So obviously he's got to be at the top part of your order. Really is going to be in the 2 or 3 hole, because he's not really a cleanup guy. And Randy, they move up to 2, so it was kind of inverted. Usually it's been Meadows 2 or Rosarena 3, so they just switch them around, which I think works, because you want to have a Rosarena getting as much at-bats as humanly possible. And his average on this little run that he's had, all the way up to 292, so he has really been raking here as of late, which is spectacular to see. So Meadows at the 3 spot, and he has a rough night tonight. Gets a single in the first, but ends up finishing 1 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts, including both times, or no, just one time, he did strike out with men on base and runs that they needed, pretty badly there in the third inning and did not get. So tough for him there. Brasso, I don't really see as a cleanup guy. I think Cash right now is just trying to maybe give him a boost. He struggled a little bit. I think he's on like a 2 for 18 stretch. He goes 0 for 4 tonight with 2 strikeouts and average down to 205. So he had a nice first couple games as a starter after really struggling to get playing time at all the first maybe 2 weeks of the season, but has just not really found his footing. He did have a couple of deep flyouts to left, so I'll give him credit for that, and made a nice play as part of a 4-man outfield as well. The very rare F4, as it were. But I just don't think that's the right spot for him. I understand with righty-lefty, with the lefty Steven Matz tonight, Brandon Lau gets the day off, and they're going to be seeing a ton of lefties. The next 2 games of this series, and also I think a couple of guys in the Oakland series as well, are all going to be left-handed starters. So I don't know if this. You want to play Lau because he was really hot before the off day. The 2 homers in back-to-back, or 2 homers in 2 days, I should say, 1 in each game. But I think Lau, I'm making the push. I'm continuing to do so for him as the cleanup hitter. But I think it was probably just a righty-lefty thing tonight, especially with how good Matz has been, that you have to play matchups. But they didn't get anything from Brasso really offensively tonight, and did not come up in any real situations. He had a man at second in the first inning, but that was it. And then outside of that, I like the bottom of the order right now. I mean, Margot is good at the 5 spot. He's really good, a guy that you want at the middle of the order, although he goes 0 for 4. Wendell, towards the bottom, I think at 6 really works because he can kind of start runs or generate some offense there. He's been great when they put him at the 3 spot or whatever, but I don't necessarily want all my best hitters clumped up at the same spot. Have 4 guys that can really hit, and then the next 5 are really going to struggle. Sprinkle them throughout so that you can get offense from different parts of the order at different times in the game, so you don't always have to score in those big bunches. So that's fine. Mejia towards the bottom, and then Adames and Kiermaier. Having Mejia in the lineup is really an interesting dynamic because it opens up that 9 spot. You don't just have to have Zunino down there, so a guy maybe that can get on base on first, and you flip the order back over. That was the case tonight. It was Kiermaier it was the 5th inning leadoff single. Then Yandy does what he does, and he walks. So man on first and second and nobody outs, and that's where the 3-run homer from Arozarena came from. So that's exactly what I was talking about, and it did work out, and it did come together tonight. So that was rather spectacular to see, and that was it, obviously, for the order. Where we're at with time right now, about the 56-minute mark, I'm not going to go all the way down. Maybe we'll just touch on some of the bigger moments and just how guys performed there. So let's do that now. So in the first inning, it was a leadoff double for Yandy Diaz, which I always love to see, especially if the leadoff guy can get an extra base hit. Usually I just like to see him take pitches. Doesn't even have to get on base, but just work a tricky at bat, or maybe work to walk or something and get under the skin of the pitcher really early. But Yandy had his pitch early in the count on a 1-1. It was just a changeup that kind of just sunk there, in the middle part of the plate. And I think was kind of a single, could have even been an out, but it was a really tough game at shortstop for Bo Bichette tonight, and he's able to get a 2-bagger off of it. It was his 3rd double of the season, and by the way, Randy's homer was his 3rd of the year as well, so those were the 2 extra base hits, the 2 only extra base hits for Tampa Bay tonight. And so after that, Randy struck out looking on that pitch on an 0-2 as well. So you want to protect, and he got a fastball just middle and just watched it go by with a man at second. Meadows hits a single, and it's funny because I know that happened in a game against the Blue Jays last year where in the first inning Yandy was thrown out at home. So that's kind of funny that it happened again. So he was at second base. Meadows singles to left on like a broken bat kind of bloop. And Ronnie Linares has been kind of conservative as far as sending Yandy, decides to go for it. I understand a 4-0 deficit in the first with 1 out. Let's get this thing going. Let's get a run on the board here for sure, because if it's it would be runners at the corners if he just stayed, and with 1 out, it's a double play. So I understand being aggressive in that spot, but Yandy, not a spectacular base runner, to say the least, which is kind of unfortunate considering he's on base like more than any other Ray. He's the only guy in the lineup tonight that's has an on base over 400. He's getting on base about 41% of the time. So he was thrown out at home there. So already kind of leaving some meat on the bone. And then Brasso flies out with Meadows, who's able to get over to second because of the throw home, and was looked good off the bat, but just kind of died out there in deep left. And it's not a Tropicana Field, obviously not a hitter's park, no doubt. The next chance to score did not come until it was the 3rd inning with 2 outs, bases empty. Yandy Diaz walks, so I love to see him do that. That's how you start. You can generate offense that way. Then Randy singles, and Yandy scoots all the way to third. It was Rosarena got a couple of changeups and just got one middle part of the plate. So he was just getting some easy pitches from Matz tonight. So runners at the corners with 2 outs. Austin Meadows comes up. 2-2 count, and gets the slider down and away and just chases it. So it was, it was a baseball off the plate, and he had taken a couple good pitches in the at-bat, but couldn't help himself from chasing there, and that's obviously not his pitch. He's more down and in, which, good on Matt's scouting report, he did not get a single pitch down and in. It was away, all 5 pitches in that sequence. So with runners at the corners and 2 outs, Meadows, who's supposed to be kind of one of your key cogs, can't come through. So, that was unfortunate because they did absolutely need those runs. Then another 2-out rally came in the 4th thanks to the help of the Blue Jays defense. So with 2 outs, bases empty, Joey Wendell gets on base, gets on first, throwing error from shortstop Bichette. So man on, again, 2 outs. Francisco Mejia hits it to third base in panic. Joe panicked, and a throwing error charged to him. So you had runners at second and third because of the error. The ball got away from first base. So, obviously the runners. So second and third with 2 outs. And up comes Willie Adames, who had a bit of a rough night tonight, 0 for 3 with the walk, but did play good at shortstop. He flies out to center field against Steven Matz. It was a 1-1 count and got a changeup up and away. So that's just a tricky pitch, and I guess that's kind of what Matz was looking for, was just to get him to fly out, pitch him up in the zone, kind of soft. It's enticing pitch, and got Adames there. Scoring chances after that, obviously the 3-run inning in the 5th. They had the home run, and it was with no outs. So bases empty, no outs, and it was Meadows to start. So you had a chance to kind of like start the inning over or just kind of continue it as normal. But Meadows strikes out, Brasso strikes out, and let's take a look at that Meadows at bat. Tough. Took 2 strikes to start the at bat, and then on a 1-2, swung through a pitch up and away. So again, Matt's pitching Meadows away, and he's really struggled against it. So that's something, I guess, any smart pitcher would do that. That's what I would do. So I don't know if that's going to be just a glaring hole in his game. Does not do well with pitches up in the zone anywhere, even up and in. He's gotten to occasionally, but it seems like that the only pitch that he hits, it seems like, is like sliders down and in, which is just so strange. But I guess he just is a golfer in that way. He just goes down and to go get him. So a good game plan for Matz, to say the least. So with 2 outs, bases empty, Margot gets on first via an error and is actually able to get all the way to second. Another bad throw from Bichette at shortstop. Like, the Blue Jays were just literally handing us runners in scoring position. It's not like, okay, it was a bad pitch and it's a double off the wall, and you should just say, oh, they handed it to him. No, they literally handed it to him. Outs, routine outs, ground balls that the Rays put in the infield. The Jays just couldn't convert to outs. And it wasn't just to get to first. Guys were getting to second and to third, and the Rays couldn't bring them in at all. So Margot gets to second base, and then Wendell comes up and grounds out to shortstop. It was another close play for Bichette. And funny that it went right to him again. I guess good on Joey if that was intentional on an 0-2, getting it over there. Joey forearms, but he was not able to get on, and so that ended the inning, and that was kind of the end of the story of the errors. They got a 1-out walk in the 6th and strikeout, ground out, Kiermaier and Diaz, and then that was pretty much it. They didn't get another base runner the rest of the game. They went 1-2-3 in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, which that is also a little bit disheartening late in the game to not even get a base runner. They do one pinch hit. They pinch hit Adames for Setsugo. Or rather, Setsugo for Adames, and Yoshi just puts it on the ground to third base. At least he put it in play. He's been striking out a ton. I believe it, speaking of strikeouts, for Randy, I think it is a Rosarena, 36% strikeout rate, which is definitely not good. And Dave Wills was talking on the broadcast tonight, just a little bit surprised, in not a good way, with how high his strikeout rate has been. I mean, anyone that knows baseball, that watches this sport, or really any sport long enough, you know that just that what he did last year wasn't sustainable. I think he's still going to be a terrific player and probably front runner for AL Rookie of the Year right now. If I had to say, I'm not too familiar with other guys out there, but he was certainly the favorite going into the season. And has still been very, very good. 292 average, which is terrific, 346 on base, 458 slugging. He's got his third homer of the year. He's got a ton of doubles to boot. But definitely has not been the same guy. He's not been crushing fastballs like at 100% clip like he did last year, which obviously that was the main part that was not sustainable. But also, as expected, guys just know not to give him a lot of fastballs, and he goes up to the plate wanting to swing at everything. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching Vlad Guerrero Sr. out there, that he just wants to swing at every pitch. He would be the perfect guy to face Blake Snell. Put it that way. He's Blake Snell's dream, a guy that just swings at everything, even if it's not exactly close. The last week or so, at-bats have been a little bit better. He's taken some more pitches, but there are still some to be desired and is just struggling, like Brandon Lau did at times against the off-speed. So it's just going to be a growing process for him. He's such a talented guy, and I'm glad that he's playing a little bit better. 2 for 4 with a 3-run blast and that terrific defensive play. Definitely he gets player of the game tonight, no doubt, or the 1-star if we're talking hockey. So that was good, and really the only thing to be said on the pitching side was I was very impressed again, and that this was a takeaway from his last start, with just how he was able to bounce back when dealing with adversity. Some guys unravel. It seems like Glasnow maybe doesn't thrive under pressure, but was able to get around it. Through 37 pitches in that first inning, they had Mazza warming up then. I mean, talk about disaster potential with that bullpen. I mean, what was his name? Lewis Head? He was going to be making his Major League debut if it wasn't for Glasnow getting it together. So to go, that's my point. To go from maybe a 2-out outing and you got to go to the pen the rest of the way with a bullpen that's already extremely taxed. You go from that to pitching 6 innings, and then you get Mazza the rest of the way for 3, and the fact that Mazza was able to face the minimum and no runs, that's terrific. Glasnow's slider was off, not sharp, not competitive. The curveball didn't throw a ton of it, and the fastball at times he didn't seem to have great control of it. It was either non-competitive and he was walking guys. He had 2 walks, which is certainly better than his 4 walks last time out. Or it was just middle, and guys were teeing off on it. 2 home runs allowed, whereas in his first 4 starts, he hadn't allowed a single home run and gave up 2 over 6 innings tonight. So there's some good, there's some bad. 5 runs allowed, takes the loss. 94 pitches, 62 for strikes. And so that's what I mean. 37 pitch first inning, and he throws 6 total under 100 pitches. I mean, it could have even come out to start the 7th, but I understand why you don't do that. He was pitching on an extra day of rest as well, which is something to consider. Faced 26 batters, threw a first pitch strike to 17 of the 26, so I think that's very good as well. Obviously, with that fastball, you need to be starting out ahead 0-1, and that just makes it so more difficult to face him. And for Mazza, 5 of 9 first pitch strikes and 34 pitches, 24 strikes for him. That's something Mazza has gotten better with, and Kevin Cash, with his press appearance today before the game, talking about Lewis Head getting called up, and all he had to say about Head was just, the kid throws strikes, that's what we want. So maybe a shot at guys like Mazza who have struggled to throw strikes. And Mazza, I think tonight was just plain terrific. Best game as a Ray so far. And so that's, I mean, we're talking the 4th or 5th time this season that's happened, where like a 5 or 6 inning start, and then they just go like Richards or Mazza the rest of the way. And it wasn't like it was garbage time up of duty. It's a 2-run game. I mean, you're trying to stay in this thing. So great for Mazza, and I think good for Glasnow. Like 10 pitch innings in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and he retired. I think it was something like 4 I think it was 13 of his last 14 batters he faced. He retired them. The only one not was the home run, the solo shot to Grichuk. So that's what I'm trying to say is just it was good to see him kind of overcome that first inning. But he gets the loss for a reason. It was that first inning that did doom the Rays because the offense most nights is not going to put up more than 4 runs. And obviously that's how this team is built, is to allow less than 4 runs, or even less than 3 or 2 some nights, depending as well. They've already had a handful of shutouts. So a loss tonight to open the series. Still 2 more against this Blue Jays team, so there is still a decent opportunity, obviously, to take the series. A couple of injury notes. We mentioned Choi was taking some ground balls at first, and he's probably 2 or 3 weeks away. Pete Fairbanks with the rotator cuff, it appears he's ahead of schedule, and we're thinking maybe late May, early June for him. So still a bit of ways away, but hopefully he'll come back better than ever because he didn't look fantastic to start the year. It was seeming like he'd get into jams every time he came up. Chris Archer with the forearm tightness was playing catch, but likely at least a couple weeks away from rejoining the rotation. So that's a bit strange. Obviously, it was 2 Saturdays ago now, so 2 weeks, so already he's been out a couple weeks. They said initially he was just going to miss one turn through the rotation. I think the qualifier to that is you say, well, you want to be careful with him anyway. You made the $6.5 million investment for this year, but also Josh Fleming, who they called up to take his place in the rotation, has pitched so well that they can afford to take their time. Or maybe it's just a situation where even if they needed him, he's just not ready yet. So thoracic outlet syndrome is very difficult to come back from. Not many guys really can do it. Archer, said he felt as better as he ever has in his career off the surgery, but his first start of the year, second total appearance, and he gets hurt. So interesting, I'll just say that. And then the only other thing, I don't know how they did this. It seems like they brought up 2 guys, and they only put Castillo on the injured list with him with the vaccine symptoms. But Mazza was optioned or called up from the alternate training site. He's been back and forth already, I think like 3 or 4 times. And then it was Lewis Head, who 31st birthday today. Very interesting story. I think last year was selling solar panels door to door in Arizona and was preparing not to be a baseball player anymore and gets called up. Who knows if he pitches? I think, tomorrow, who knows? I mean, if Castillo's ready to come off, then Lewis Head would go back down. So we'll see if he ends up making his major league debut or not. And that's about it. A note that we just got, though, Honeywell will be an opener tomorrow for the Blue Jays. It was Ryan Yarbrough's day to pitch, and as we now transition to preview tomorrow's game, I do like the move. I think that's the right choice. Ryan Yarbrough, they tried to get him to take that jump, I think late 2019 to a starter, and he pitched okay and was a starter all of 2020 and was the only guy that was stretched out to start the year and was a workhorse. But I don't think he's a starter. The soft tossing lefty, I mean, he can get 5 or 6 good innings, but I think he needs to pitch behind someone, especially a lineup like Toronto. I mean, the Blue Jays are tough 1 through 9, really, but that he can face the order 3 times through, say, but only face the top guys 2 times, obviously. So he does, that's the concern facing the lineup a 3rd time through. Is not, the 9 hitter, but the top guys. So that you only have to see Biggio, Bichette, Guerrero, Simeon potentially only 2 times instead of 3, and you still get 5 or 6 innings out of them. I think is the way to go. I really like the way things worked out with him opening against the Yankees. Kittredge went 1 2/3, which I think was more of a matchup thing. They just wanted him to face that number of guys. Usually they'll just pitch the first inning, however long it takes to get 3 outs. But with Kittredge going 1 2/3 to start the game, Yarbrough following with 5, by the time you go to the bullpen, you're looking at just getting 1 more out in the 7th inning. So you only need 7 more outs. So I like the way that works. Honeywell is going to open, and he pitched last on, it was April 20th. So he'll be pitching on 3 days rest off of an inning and a third and about, I think, 25 pitches. So they said he was stretched out to 2 or 3 that game, and obviously only went an inning and a third. So maybe he just faces the order one time through. So whether that's 2 innings or whatever, I think they want Yarbrough to start an inning. They don't want to just come in, even though he did do that last time out, obviously, with 1 out left to get in the second. But more advantageous just to have Yarbrough start. So maybe Honeywell gets through 2, then Yarbrough comes on. I guess this would be wishful thinking, but Honeywell for 2, Yarbrough for 5. So that gets you through 7. And so if you're winning, you only need 6 more outs. I don't know if Castillo's going to be back, but if he is, they'll probably use him. But if not, Kittredge and Thompson, or maybe Springs and Thompson, would be the 2 guys that you go to if you only need 2 more innings of work. So I kind of give the bullpen somewhat of another day off. If that in that situation you're only using 2 guys, so I think that would be ideal. Tomorrow, a late Saturday game, 6:10 Eastern time. That was something going into this year that was kind of one of the scheduled quirks, is the Rays they're going to get to try out some night Saturday games. Usually it's all afternoon, so you get a chance to watch some day baseball, go enjoy the day outside, and then come in the evening and watch the game. Rays at 10-10, Blue Jays at 9-10. It'll be the lefty Robbie Ray against Honeywell to open, but the lefty Ryan Yarbrough to follow. To start the year, Robbie Ray is 0-1 with a 1.8 earned run average. This will be only his 3rd start of the year. His last time out against the Royals, 5-inning shutout on 4 hits. And then his first time out, 5 innings of 2 runs on 3 hits against the Yankees. Robbie Ray, I think most popularly known as the guy who walks more than anyone from a starting pitching standpoint, walked 6 against the Royals and 3 against the Yankees, both in just 5 innings of work, and struck out only 3 in both of those. So for a Rays team that gets base runners and gets walks anyway, there are going to be plenty of opportunities to score. What will be the difference is if this lineup is able to come through in big moments with runners in scoring position, all that stuff. So that'll be the key. I can envision it being frustrating because it could be bases loaded and he gets out of it. It's just stuff like that. But he's going to walk plenty of guys, and with him being a lefty, a lineup similar to today, you want to go mainly all righties. So probably Wendell. Well, it'll be tough. I would go Wendell at third, Adames at shortstop. I would put Brandon Lowe back in at second base. He's already had 2 days off. And then Yandy at first. If they want to have Zunino catch, that would be fine. And then the outfield, you would go Arozarena, Kiermaier, and Margot, as they did tonight, is what I would do. That would be probably makes the most sense. And then I guess you DH Meadows again, or if you want to get a righty in there. But that would be up to them. And Ryan Yarbrough on the season, he's not getting the start, but coming out of relief, he's 1-2 on the year with a 4.50 ERA, so not a great start for him. This will be his 5th appearance of the year, as we're now moving through a 5th time through the order. Again, his last appearance behind an opener in the Bronx last Sunday, he went 5 innings pitched, 1 run on 2 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, only 87 pitches thrown. He was really picking away at the zone. I think with a heavy right-handed power hitting order in the Blue Jays, again like the Yankees, it's going to be more of the same. This is a lineup that can crush pitches, but they are young, and Yarbrough can tend to frustrate some of these younger guys. It seems like kind of the older veteran hitters tend to have better at-bats against Yarbrough. So maybe some of these younger guys, if they're coming up very swing heavy, Yarbrough can find a groove there. And then I guess the hope on the other side is that they're able to cash in on some of those walks from Robbie Ray. And this would be a good guy to get anyone that's slumping in the game, because they're going to be able to take pitches. It's not like, it's tough when you go up in the batter's box and you blink and you're down 0-2 in the count. So Robbie Ray really struggles with the strike zone, and hopefully everyone can take advantage. I mean, who knows? Maybe they get 8 walks tomorrow total as a team. That would be great, and get the strikeout numbers down. So hoping for a win, certainly. Saturday evening baseball. I am most certainly looking forward to it. Want to thank everyone tonight for checking out the program. Took a couple days off, missed just one game, but it was good to be back. We'll be on the air tomorrow. We'll be on the air Sunday. Now pretty much day in and day out, talking Rays, post-game shows. That's about it. That's all we've got to say. The game at 6. The game will probably end around 9:30. We'll be on the air right around there. Follow at WHBC Official on Twitter to get the link to the show when it goes live, or get us wherever you've been getting us on Discord, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. Until then, Saturday night, we'll talk to you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.